Those are Al's pants. I don't want to. No big deal. Okay. Hey, Al's gonna give a talk over here, and it's gonna be a really long one. And this is my other camera that can film for many, many hours. So this could be a really long one, like longer than, many hours long. We're gonna see how long he can talk for. And in his comfortable space right here. I said he could even he could lay down here while he's filming. This is gonna be a long one, but it may be only 40 minutes. We'll see how long he goes for until he gets. All right. And this is the art school where we are now. Where's the camera on there? This is the art school. And I rehabbed this house. He used to own it. Yeah. And, I could still do more work to it, obviously. I got lazy after working on it so hard, and he's gonna
talk to you.
Yeah.
He's gonna talk to you. See, no one really owns this school. The school owns us. The hill is a magical place. Just getting ready here, kids.
What are you doing?
Getting ready.
Well, I'm filming.
Good. We have hours.
Hours? Hey.
Okay. Here we go. And cut.
No.
Oh, it's the other one. And roll.
It's rolling.
Rolling.
It's been rolling.
It's been rolling.
And you've been ready. Like that little kid in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
What little kid?
Do I look like I'm ready?
Do I look like I'm ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
No, you're good.
I'm ready.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a really good movie.
It is.
And I did a parody of Pee-wee Herman. I've filmed like him. An homage to him.
Homage.
Pretty much an homage.
It was an homage.
But, yeah.
I'm getting ready here.
Okay.
Almost
You got the
ready.
shorts on your head just as was scripted, right?
Yeah, just as it was scripted,
Okay.
yeah.
No.
It's in the script.
This is not scripted
Kind of.
compared to a real movie, but Owl.
That's who I am. O-W-L. Owl Bob. Sensei Owl Bob. It appears on the YouTube thing as Al or Al or Al. It's Owl. That's me. That's a drawing I did of myself back in the day. When I was about 40 when I did that.
Can I show a close-up of it?
Yeah. We'll zoom in.
And the zoom's not so good on the iPhone. I get
Right there?
Yeah. Doing a workout, strengthen the abs. That's your real art.
Yeah, my real art.
Okay.
I got lots of real art.
Self-portraits or somebody else? You're.
I just scribble. Here. I'll show you some more up close. This is me when I was a performance artist in New York City. I used to make lightning in squash courts because that's where the first nuclear reactor was. Enrico Fermi. That is the first. Let's see. Here's one of our potluck dinner performance evenings. It was out there in a place that became the kitchen. Best Bees. Here's me, being an anthropologist, living with an Aboriginal tribe.
We've seen that in your other video. If they've watched that one,
Right.
A spiritual reading with Owl Bob.
Yeah. There's me with the gang. And there's baby Jesus right there.
Wow.
That boy could bring things back to life. You know how old he is in that picture? He's about 4 months. Look how big he is. And look at the halo around his head. What other pictures do I have in here? I got some.
Those are real Aborigines?
Real Aborigines. There was about 1,100 of them, and then they found uranium and titanium. I used to make light art, reflective art,
cool.
light art. Anyway, that's kind of what it looked like. And it was kind of an extension of my disco days. Here is Donna M. McAdams and a young lad I got off the street called Detlev Paul. And he became quite the electrician. He's one of my best protege electricians. And that was right across the street. That's on 6th Avenue and I think 16th Street. But that was what is known as the tennis. This was an old parking lot that had inflatable tennis courts on it. And it was right across the street. I guess it was 20th Street or near 20. We were on 21st. Anyway, our studio was there back in the day. So I'm just going to read you some stuff to start the conversation. Past life regression, part 1. Let's see. Who are we? Where did we come from? Why is life so unfair? Viewed in a linear two-dimensional context of our separated robot sense of fear, greed, selfish hate, ignorance, and prejudicial thinking through a timeline of patriarchal history of a personally unknowable God whose needs are administered and motivated by a power-hungry orthodoxy of a politically moneyed, blood-thirsting order of parasites. No wonder the world, and all of us in it, feel petrified, confused, much like a suicidal rat on a never-ending treadmill of regret and misery and longing and scared for death's end.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, babies. And that's kind of that's what we go through every day. Anyway.
Like a worker ant supporting the overall agenda, always working, just unable to stop because it's not quite enough, and just...
You got it.
It's amazing how we're kind of like ants, human beings.
Yep.
Almost in our nature.
Ants have it better. At least they know what they're doing. We don't have a clue. You know, ants, they're happy. Didn't you ever see the movie Ants' Life? You know, they're happy. They know what they're doing. You know? Us, we have to think of ourselves better than anybody else. We're always looking at the other as lower than us, worse than us, pitiful. And that's what I try to speak to, that we don't have to do that. We are all our relations. We're all the other. We're all the homeless. I'm homeless. I have no money. I'm floating free in the universe. I own nothing. I live on the kindness of the universe, and John is part of that kindness. So if everybody kind of helped each other, and that's how it was before Samaria, we lived in not even tribes, we lived in groups, almost families, but larger than that, meaning, you know, the guy who was the caveman, we find out that he was sturdier than we were. His brain was twice as big as ours. His art was better than ours. He buried his dead. He left flowers on their graves. You know, he wasn't og and grog hitting people. And they were more or less non-violent. They did not have wars, right? They were more or less hunter-gatherers in that they did more gathering than hunting, because most things were hunting them. So we have this really golden opportunity. Right now, we stand in a place where humanity, there are less hungry people. The United States has less crime than it ever has in you know, recorded, you know, from the 1890s when they started keeping statistics. We have less crime. more people go to school, more people are fed. Around the world, more people go to school, more people are fed. And we are being fed a line that things are terrible and it's almost end of times. Nope, not going to happen anytime soon. And it's never going to be an end of times. I used to teach this class. I used to be a substitute teacher in college because I was a researcher, and people would say, hey, you want to make an extra $100 a week here? And I once did this class in intro environmentals, right? And this girl took it, and she couldn't care less, right? She just did the bare minimum. I once asked everyone in that class why they were taking it. When it got around to her, she said, well, I'm taking it because I have to. For this other thing I'm studying, I need this one credit of this environmental course. And I said, oh, nice. Guess what? You fail. And she like nearly crapped in her. What do you mean? I get a C? I said, yeah, but you could get an A. You're smart. She said, well, I don't need this. This is a stupid course. I said, oh, your environment is stupid? The home you live in? I see you drive to school in that big SUV all by yourself. Couldn't you get some people? Why would I want people in my car? And I just questioned her existence. And she said, listen, I'm a born-again Christian. And Jesus is going to come, and I'm going to be one of the 190,000 people that are going to be sucked up like Jell-O, and the rest of you going to hell. And I said, really? You think God wants you? You think Jesus likes that attitude? Don't you read your own Bible? He always had more time for the prostitute, the poor person, the beggar, the guy with a disease than he did for rich folk. He had no time for the rich folk. Well, my daddy's rich and I'm rich too, and blah, blah, blah. And that's an attitude. Now that I wouldn't call that lady a Christian, Gandhi, someone once asked him, so what do you think of Christianity? And he said, well, I like the teachings of Jesus Christ. He's a cool dude. It's just his followers I have a hard time with. So I write novels, I write white papers. I used to get paid for things like this, right? It's called Community, the Roanoke Commons Community City Involvement, CCI, with no fear, a new beginning. Someone once said, why do you write so long? Just give me some bullet points. So I call this Bang Bang Silver Bullet Points. Issues to represent. A nonprofit 501c3, a new beginning, Community Action Coordination Council, CACC. Transparency will be the CACC's foundation of a new social contract between the citizen, the political, and the bureaucratic arms of the city government. The CACC will be the out-of-the-box facilitation framework to allow the city to be all it can be for all our citizens and not just that few in charge who look out for themselves rather than all our relations. The CACC will be able to say and do things that need to be said and done and awaken all of the sleeping meat puppet pulpits. Meaning, in the city of Roanoke, there are hundreds of churches. And out of those hundreds of churches, only 11 do anything for the people, right? All day long, the door is locked. It's cold, they don't let them in. Cold nights, very few of the churches, I don't even know any church that opens the door and lets people in. I used to live in Asheville, and there was a Catholic church there, and it was built by all these Italian marble workers who came to build the great temple of wealth of the Biltmore House. And the Biltmore were the Astor family, that old wealth, and they wanted to build a house that would rival Versailles. And they did, Biltmore House. And anyway, so they had, an army of European artisans to build that thing. And that's why Asheville was such a artisan kind of place, you know. And after, you know, when the 20th century became, you know, the Astors kind of died on the Titanic. It was quite interesting that all of the old wealth died. So the new wealth, the people like J.P. Morgan and Rockefeller and guys like that could assert themselves past that old wealth, basically, in that one ship crashing. And it's quite interesting because that boat was owned by Mr. Morgan, and it was almost like the captain committed suicide. Somehow they had dirt on him, and or they were going to give his family a lot of money, and so he went down with the ship and took all of the old wealth with him. And he was going through the North Atlantic where there were, you know, they were told, hey, watch out, you know, maybe you should go a little south, you know, because you've got a lot of icebergs out there. And he said he wanted to set the record. That's what he kept saying. So he was speeding through a part of the sea that was full of icebergs. And he smashed, you know, was heading right for one, and he had them try to miss it, meaning if he had just put on all reverse and smashed into that iceberg, he would have just dented the front. But because he tried to miss it, and there's more underneath, he took out the whole side of the boat. And those boats had these watertight compartments. Well, he took it out the whole side of the boat. So none of that worked. So the boat sank. And what was quite interesting, another boat owned by a J.P. Morgan company was less than 3 miles. And the water was calm as calm could be. There was no star. It was a starry, starry night. And the Titanic was shooting off their flares. And they're like, you know, boats have flags to tell you stuff. They have Morse code. And they have flares. Different colors mean different things. Anyway, that boat that was only a few miles away, big boat, turned its radio off. And then they saw the flares. And the second officer said, doesn't that mean that they're in trouble? And the captain said, oh no, it's a beautiful night. They're just shooting off fireworks. And so the boat came by 8 or 9 or 10 hours later and picked up the people in the lifeboats. But all the men, all the wealth, all the power went down with the boat. And things like that go on and on and on. You know, they're called red flags, you know. Second World War, that's a quite interesting thing. You know how Adolf Hitler and his gang were all going after the Aryan race? Well, there is no such thing. What they were talking about was the Greek god of Ares, the god of war. That's where they were going for the Ares. But the blonde and blue eyes were an alien race that had contacted them, just as another race had contacted Tesla in the 20s and the early 1890s on his radio. He constantly said, hey, I'm talking to these. You know, he had a radio that talked to people in space while Marconi was just barely taking dots and dashes across a little channel of water. And we say that Marconi invented radio. History is his story. Thucydides, the father of written history, was asked, oh, Thucydides, what's history? You know, what's different from the oral tradition? And Thucydides said, well, I write it down, and I work for the Romans, and I write whatever the Romans tell me to write. So that's, you know. So, I'm going to start putting, I have, like I said, 26 novels that are over 1,700 pages apiece. I have hundreds of short stories and multiple hundreds of papers like this, because I used to get paid to write these things. And only the smart people who had the money would read them, and the sock puppet politician, you know, people in churches and such, they couldn't even waste the time to read. Why is it so long? Let's see. to be awake is to transform. 2015, when I died. No, it's a different story. Okay. So this one's called Shangri-La. When we get back to our life, we see it as one of running as fast as we can away from our love's life of truth. That was written, that's a quote from Gil Scott-Heron. And all of you YouTubers out there should go listen to Gil Scott-Heron. I mean, he was a guy who, hey, have you heard the word Johannesburg, you know? And the revolution will not be televised, you know? Anyway, to be awake is to transform. 2050. What do I do now? The 8 ball has come up snake eyes time after time. I'm living on $95 a month. The bank takes everything else. The credit card 88800 number come up on my $11 Smarter Than Me phone 22 times a day. When my car works, I could get myself around to look for a job. No one wanted to employ an over-experienced shamanic psychosocial cultural forensic anthropologic alchemist. 2006. I died for the 7th time in this life. Got 2 more lives left. 27 years in taking care of my reptilian parents. My father slithered the blade of destiny of his reptilian fear of lack of spiritual relevance. The glint of his charms, materialism, illusion of safety, of self-activating sociopathic software, burnt a path nice and deep into my heart's innocent paternal trust. Love is humanity's co-creative service. Love is our reason for our soul's non-linear immortality. The trust of my father's manifesting egocentric separation from love's totality personifies Homo sapiens' inability to move on to more relevant spiritual action, to be awake to our higher self. And this is a quote from Saint Germain. It is not enough that humanity in the first person comes to drink when the invitation from love's higher source has gone forth. The adept must transform alchemically their ego into a new skin of service to retain the new wine of love's infinite transformative purpose. So, you go. What is a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist? So, again, the shamanic is a worldview of totality, meaning when I traveled to Australia, I went to visit a friend. I was only going to be there a few weeks. I ended up being there with Donna Ann for almost 3 years. And we did amazing things, met amazing people, did amazing travels, and that's why we went there. But the flight from LAX to Sydney was like purgatory. And we got the cheapest seat, and we were like in the back of steerage, back with the chickens. And we couldn't move, we couldn't get out. It was terrible. It was the worst. And the best we could do was just fall asleep. So we did, and we kind of fooled around because nobody was watching. And when we were coming into Sydney, we were about, they were saying, okay, we're about a half an hour. So I got up and I went to the use of the John. No, actually, we were a couple hours out. We were right at the line of where the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere kind of come together. And I took a piss in the bowl of the airplane, the blue bowl, and I flushed the toilet. It started going this way, and then it slowed down, and then went the other way as we crossed in the southern hemisphere. And I saw that. Most people kind of realize it, some other moment when they're in the John looking at it going, hey, look, it's going the other way. I saw it go one way and then slow down and change its direction and go another way. And then I was standing up there, but I was like, the John is like, you couldn't even pull down. I was in there and I went into a state, and the state was totally black. Normally when I meditate, it was a meditative state. Normally when I meditate in front of my imaginary mirror, it turns white. And then I shine that light into my body or my subconscious or my superconscious mind and illuminate it so I can see what's going on inside. And I was in another place. And all of a sudden there was pounding on the door and bing, I was back in the John. But I was in a really different place. And so I made it back to our seats, and Donna was still asleep, and she kind of snuggled up in my arms and lap and curled up like a cat that she was. And we kind of fell back to sleep, and I went back into that dream space, that dream time. And what I saw was from my loft in Brooklyn, there was there were waves coming from the sky. There was smoke, but these waves were coming from the side. And then all of a sudden, the whole of the World Trade Center kind of jumped up and then fell down and came down in a mushroom cloud. It was like there was a nuclear weapon just for the World Trade Centers. And the smoke went up, like I said, it was a mushroom cloud. And I was seeing that, and I started to cry. And the tears came down my cheeks and splashed on Donna's face. And she woke up and she looked at me and said, honey, what's up? What's wrong? Why are you crying? And I said, oh, I just had a bad dream. And then I kind of stretched, and the flight attendant came by and said, oh, we're going to land. And I said, oh, what day is it? And she said, it is September 11th. I said, I thought September 12th. And she goes, well, since we went over, from the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, we went back a day. And so when I saw the toilet bowl, and I had this black sense around me, it was September 11th, 1977. Then when I went back to the sit and wait to land, and fell asleep, and I saw the World Trade Centers collapse. It was September 11th, 1977. And we land, and my friend was waiting for us, Neil Curtis, and he is the Gary, I don't know what he is now, I haven't heard from him in a long time, but then he was a comic strip guy. He was an artist, and he, at the time, see, people think countries, like look at Russia. They just had an election. Putin won. It's a democracy. Ooh. Well, same is for pretty much everything owned by the Queen. She owns everything. She is the richest entity on the world. Hundreds of trillions of dollars. She doesn't pay taxes. She owns property in England that the people who live in those areas that she owns, she can make them do anything she wants. They're like she owns them. And little do you know, YouTubers, you're owned too. That birth certificate of yours, it shows ownership. So I would go look up the Admiralty law. And there's a guy, oh man, I love YouTube because everybody and his brother who's got an opinion or idea or something has a blog or a show, or like what we do, whatever this is. And I'm gonna make a list. I don't have it in front of me. I'm gonna make a list of people but Linda Moulton Howe is one person. Joseph P. Farrell is another. David Icke, Joseph Campbell, good old Shakespeare, Plato. Everybody out there should read Plato's thesis on Atlantis. You'll kind of want to know where you came from. You should read that. And you should go Google the ancient builders. There was a TV show, 90s, early O's, called Stargate and Stargate Atlantis and Stargate this and Stargate that. And those guys were right on, and I'm sure they had a inside, I know the Air Force loved them. The Air Force gave them all kinds of pats on the back and gave them access to, things to make their show look groovier. But pretty much the storyline that they're telling was that. And, back in the early O's, they had a thing where they have a war above the South Pole. And that's exactly what happened about 12,000 years ago. And I don't know how close you follow anything, but there's a buzz about people visiting the South Pole, like the Pope and the Orthodox Pope of the Russian Church, and Mr. Hines, our Secretary of State under Obama, and a whole bunch of other really, really rich and important people have gone down there. And, it's hard to get down there. There is no, highway or airport, and it's pretty dangerous, You got to almost be wearing a spacesuit. It's so cold and that wind is blowing. So what's going on down there is, and it was in this show, Stargate Atlantis. All this amazing technology and history is buried under 1,200 feet of ice. And they have built a nice little ramp there, and they're taking it all away and putting it in places like Area 51. And Area 51 isn't even, if you want to see something, you should go to the Leila Missile Range in Australia, a place called Alice Springs. And that's where everything is, because nobody's there. It's out in the middle of nowhere, Australia, 900 miles there are no roads, no nothing going there. There's one railroad thing that only is used for special things. So basically, kids, your job is to awake. Buddha was standing on the side of the road, and he was, just glowing in transformative, transcendental presence. And a traveler went by him and said, "Oh, wow, who are you?" And he goes over and bugs him. "Are you God?" And Buddha takes a slow look at this guy and goes, "No." "What are you, a magician? What are you?" And Buddha looks at him again and goes, "I am awake." And that's what you guys need to become, awake. Stop worrying about the incidentals. My doctors, so that thing I read to you that, the credit card, that's because I got really sick. And everybody took every nickel I had. And then threw me off to the side of the bus and said, "Die." But I wouldn't die. And then I got a bunch of doctors take care of me because they were all betting on when I was going to die. And the fact I didn't die, and I didn't even, I just kind of went to them, I get a little gangrene, I need them to saw that off, I got a little of this, I needed, there were certain things I couldn't do, but they took care of me. Who's that?
It's Leila.
Hey, Leila! 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 Hey, say hello to the YouTube kids.
You want to be on the...
Say hello to the YouTube kids.
You want to be on the camera?
Wait, is it filming right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, so now it's three of us.
Hello.
Hey, John. John, come sit next to me. Come here, John.
You want to say anything to everybody?
Come here.
Leila, is it okay if you're on
just
video?
Sit here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit down. Here. There'll be
on YouTube?
Yes, here. Let me hold it. Let me hold it. Now sit down.
I gotta use the bathroom.
Well, go use the bathroom. It'll just be me and Leila. Hey, Leila, how you doing, buddy?
Hey Al, how's it going?
Oh, I've been telling kids stories. You know.
Try to face it straight on so you
I
straight
know,
on.
I've seen.
Yeah. Have you looked at any of our YouTubies?
Of course I have.
Well, then,
Excellent.
yeah, it's now you're part of the team, Leila. Team Leila.
Ooh.
So how cold is it? Tell the kids where you are.
Okay, I'm in Moscow, Russia, for a few more weeks. I'll be back in the summer to the United States, and right now I don't know what it. I guess it's about minus 28. Or sorry, it's 28 degrees Fahrenheit, but it's like I think in Celsius here.
It's minus 15.
It's probably like I think it's about like minus 2 or 3 Celsius.
Yeah.
So whatever that is.
You know, when it gets to be about 29 here, everyone wimps out. You know, you are quite the Zoptic goddess of snow.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's been snowing like crazy over here. It snowed today
Yeah.
and yesterday.
So how many feet of snow do you guys have? A lot.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to think.
You can say meters. You know, that's not a big test.
Well, I did a measurement like it was like up to my knees.
So that's less.
But it might even be more.
More. Yeah.
It could even be more.
You know, we had 3 inches and everything came to a standstill. You know, it was pitiful.
You know, it snowed. Didn't it snow yesterday? Or
Yes, Wednesday. It snowed Wednesday. Yeah, I guess that was yesterday. Yep.
Yeah.
But you know,
Mhm.
it's all good. It's all good. So, what do you like the best being there, and what do you miss?
Okay. What do I like the best about being here?
She can't, like, we couldn't see any of her on there, but it's okay.
I like teaching my students. I'd say that's the best, definitely the best thing. And also the teachers I work with are phenomenal. They're amazing people. So yeah, a combination of the students, my coworkers, and what do I miss? I miss spicy food.
Whoa, you
They
look
do not have spicy
really
food
good.
here.
So what's
You
the
look
best?
really good.
What's the best food?
You look really good.
Where did she go? Where did she go?
Yeah.
What do you like as food? Do you like gnocchi, blintzes, cabbage? What's your
Wow, look at your
favorite?
face. It's beautiful. Well,
Yeah, I've actually had all of those things. I'd say do you know like what? Did you mention blini?
Yeah. Tell the audience. I used to live in a Russian Polish neighborhood in New York City. So yes, I do know what that is. Tell the audience what it is.
It's basically like a pancake, but a little different.
Not as sweet, right?
huh.
No, yeah. Usually in Europe and Russia,
man,
things aren't as sweet. Breaded things aren't as sweet as back in America.
Yeah. Well, you're no longer on the YouTube, girl. John has taken you away. So I look forward to seeing you when summer comes around. And you know, we've had 4, and we were going to have our 5th Northeaster in less than a month, right? And so, are you aware of what's going on in Europe? I mean, you are in Europe, but you're up there in the north. You know,
Like which thing? There's so many things going on.
well, the weather in Europe. I mean, it's been the coldest it's been almost ever.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You wanna talk to her?
Well,
Yeah.
Moscow's had the most snow in 20 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still filming.
Okay, so you still filming. So,
Look at the snow.
you know, my friends in Europe are totally freaked out, and here in America, they don't even talk about it. It's kind of interesting. Anyway, yeah. So I
Looks
look
like I
forward to
could
seeing
drive
you.
out.
I'm you know, when I last saw you, it was a very interesting, strange moment where you just came and left and spent most of your time. When I came back, the only thing left of you were the cigarettes I found.
But she's right there.
Yeah, the butt's on the ground. Where you were sitting outside, you know. Kind of.
Oh yeah. I was gonna clean those up, but
But it was nice that you left them there because it reminded me of you. You know.
Oh my god.
No.
It's the only thing. But I was looking forward to more conversations and fun.
That was
But
awesome.
now it's gonna, if you come and visit, it'll be summer and we can go and have fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be much nicer.
Yeah, it was. It was like the day I was ejected. That was like the coldest day of the year. And then did I tell you the story? I left there and I had no place to go. So I was heading towards West Virginia where I took friends, and I slept in my car right on the border, like 202 and 64.
I thought you went together with all those young people in the woods.
I'm telling her how I found them. Anyway,
I thought
so
you had
I
plenty of places to go.
No, so I had no place to go. So I slept in my car that night, and then I knew where this nice diner was. I went there for breakfast,
Yes.
comfort food, right? Came out, there was this pretty girl spare changing right there. And I said, so what's your story? And she goes, well, I've graduated college, and I didn't get the job I wanted. I was in my mom's basement, and my friends and I, we come from Georgia, and we decided to take an adventure before we had to take a crappy job to pay off our loans, right? So around September, they get up on the Appalachian Trail, and they have never camped. They have never hiked. She went out there in flip-flops, right? No camping gear whatsoever. And the AT, I don't know if you've ever been on it, it's like one big party conga line. And so they went from one campsite to the other, grubbing food and things like that, until I bumped into them, December 27th, the coldest day of the year.
That's kind of too much.
And
what do you mean they were doing a Congo line on each other's? Were they naked?
No. The Congo line is a fun party thing, John. It's not a sexual thing. It's a metaphor for a party.
But you said something a little different from that.
I said it was a long Congo line party on the Appalachian Trail. Anyway, so they partied down, and then they found themselves in an abandoned cabin right near where I found this girl. And I went there.
The same ones from the last time?
Yeah, John, if you'd listened to the story the many times I've told it to you.
You never said that these ones were the same as
They were the same. Anyway, so I go in there, and these kids, all snowflakes, all bourgeois, all have really nice fancy clothes, but nothing to keep them warm. They left in September. They didn't even have a pack or a tent or a tarp or nothing. And so they're like shivering in this thing.
They're trying to figure out how to not be a worker ant.
And so I see the guy, oh no, that's my face up there. Anyway, so I come on to them, and my car's got cans of food and blankets and boxes of, I'm always prepared, right?
Right.
And so I look around, there's a fireplace and a wood stove. And they haven't made a fire. How long have you been here? 3 days. And the guy goes, well, we haven't been able to buy wood. And they're in the middle of a forest. Yes, roll those eyes. And so I get them all to come outside, and I say, look at the floor. And the guy goes, what floor? The floor of the forest. The forest has a floor. Look at the ground. And there's all this wood, and it hasn't rained. We were in a drought at that point. And I said, that will burn. Drag it in the house. Let's get a fire going. And they did. And we started, what are we going to start with? Well, there was garbage everywhere. We burnt the garbage, right?
Was it the, were they 32 or something?
They were younger than that. They were between 22 and 27. Or even, they were snowflakes, just out of college.
Plus they're hard.
It was unbelievable. They were going to freeze to death there, right? And the wind was whipped, so we have to go to Lowe's and get insulation. No, we pick up the candy wrappers and put them, anyway.
But one of them, the pretty girl farted and you lit a match and then
no,
it
John, no, nothing scatological whatsoever, no. So we started a fire in the wood stove. There was a cast iron pot. Oh, we can't use that. I said, we put water in it. We boil it. We scrape it out. We put more water and boil it. It'll be fine. I had cans of food. We had food, right? So I stayed there 2 days, and our circle of getting wood got farther and further away from the cabin. And I was out in the woods and finding the wood and then saying, kids, bring this in, because I couldn't drag it in. And so there were a bunch of army people out there, right? And about 4 guys, 2 girls. And these were soldiers.
And they were watching you.
Yeah, they
heard you over your phone.
No, not at all.
They had
No.
heard you. They were spies for
What
the
these
government.
kids? No, they weren't. What these kids were kids who were soldiers that had been deployed in Afghanistan and Iraq 6-7 times till they broke. And then when they snapped in country, they hit their sergeant or their lieutenant and got a dishonorable discharge. So they came home and they couldn't go to the VA, they couldn't get any assistance, they couldn't get welfare, they couldn't get anything because they had a dishonorable discharge. And their families were scared of them. Yeah, and there's millions of those kids.
Their families were scared of them?
Yeah.
Why?
Because they were bred, broken and then put together to be
They
killers.
wanted to be on their own. They didn't want to always have to work. And
No. They couldn't. They would have loved to fit in. They couldn't. They were mentally broken from their experiences of war. It's called PTSD. The soldiers.
Oh, the soldiers. Yeah. That's awful.
And so the thing that was the most unbelievable about these kids, these soldiers, was I said, so, what's going on? There's more than just PTSD. Every one of them had been raped by their fellow soldiers, even the boys. Yep.
No.
It's serious. It's one of the biggest problems in our military.
What do you mean? Raped?
Yes.
By other men?
Yes.
No.
Yes. They call it hazing.
Superiors or
What?
how does that happen?
I've never heard
It's
of
called
that.
hazing. That's what they call it.
No.
Yes.
That's the first
the
I've ever
literature.
heard of
Well,
that.
yeah, they don't advertise it, John.
That's your own idea.
No, it's not. If you go online, it's all over the place. I mean, if you go look
No,
at,
they don't do that. They don't haze people in a
Okay, they don't do it, John. No. Anyway,
that
those
doesn't
were the
make
2
sense.
groups of kids I met the first week, and it got colder and colder. So I brought the soldiers
I've never
into the
heard
cabin and said, "You guys are well trained. These guys are going to die. You take care of them." And it was interesting because the dynamic of that, those guys now had a purpose. And they were way lightened. And the young kids listened to those guys because they were voices of authority that they never even heard. And so I left them, kumbaya. And so that's that story. So I hope President Putin enjoyed that one. And everybody listens to everybody. If you don't think, if you're not thinking that's right, you're not.
all noise.
Right, it's all noise. It's like the Wizard of Oz,
He's like a Russian.
Anyway, everybody,
He's not
YouTube
like Jesus, that's
kids, Leila, it's good
I
to see
believe
your
you.
beautiful face.
I believe you.
Oh, leave us with
Yeah.
what's the most grooviest happening saying in Russian that the kids say today?
It smells. Something.
Well, some of my students said they probably should, I guess it's not really a curse word, but we were talking about blini earlier, the pancakes.
Uh-huh.
Well, the Russian version of darn is bleen.
Bleen.
So, bleen.
Bleen. Okay. I got it. Okay, that's what I'm going to be using from now on. Bleen.
No.
Bleen.
Bleen.
It's my favorite.
I'm going to name my first child that.
Oh.
Okay, sweetie. Love you.
All right.
See you when you
What are
get
you
back
doing?
in town.
What are you doing?
So that was Leila, one of our friends. Hope you enjoyed that. Where were we? Let's see. I was giving you a list of things. Let's see. Can I even see my phone? Let's try this. Google history. See, this is a performance piece. I'm showing you what most human beings in America look like. Always looking at their tablet, not talking to the person who's with them. Oh, this is useless. Anyway, as I was saying before, there are these two groups who have been fighting in our solar system, fighting in our galaxy, fighting in our universe. The blue-eyed, tall whites, blonde-haired, and the reptiles, and the grays. There's three guys, and sometimes they ally against the other guy, but they are fighting just like what Aries fights for conflict, for the energy. So why they haven't invaded us, but they've been here. I mean, some say that we are their genetic experiment. That they took things from Australopithecus and used a device like CRISPR and turned us into Homo sapiens sapien. So who knows? All I know is nothing is as it seems to be. Just when I said that little thing about our military, young, who sacrificed and got the raw end of the stick, John couldn't believe that. Most people in our country have a belief. That's why I don't believe in anything. All I do is have faith in love's beauty, because I know that works. But all these other things, I'm a scholar. I hear a lot. People tell me things. I look stuff up. I read books. Imagine that. I go into libraries and read books, not just depending on Google to give me a paragraph, or to look at whatever that thing is that's like a encyclopedia. But anyway, I'm starting to get a little tired. These bright lights are bothering me. But let's see, I'm going to tell you a story about Gary Blue. The first time I met the Aborigines in Australia. The second time I met the Aborigines. First time I went walkabout. First time my boss, who is the quote-unquote experts on the Aborigines, when I met him in Perth, because the government didn't give me a vehicle, they gave me a bus ticket. And I had to go from Sydney to Melbourne to Adelaide to Perth, all the way around to Broome, and then down to Alice Springs. And it was great that I went that way, because I saw all of Australia in ways that most people never. I saw every little outpost along that road. And we would stop, and sometimes the thing would break down, and we'd be there for a few days. So the other amazing thing is my wife, Donna Ann McAdams, she would be taking pictures of everything. And we would stop for a meal, and we would have 2 or 3 hours, to have a meal, stretch our legs, use the facilities, whatever. And then when the bus guy wanted to go, he would honk the horn, 10 minutes, he'd honk it again, 5 minutes, he'd honk it again, 2 minutes, he'd honk it again, 1 minute, he'd honk it again, then he'd drive away. And if you weren't on the bus, he'd open up the bottom, throw your bags off, and drive away. My wife and I missed the bus 6 times. And once you got past Perth and we're heading north, that bus didn't come like the next day or every 2 hours. No, it came every week, in some places 2 weeks. So in those 6 times that we were left stranded, we had to hang out in those little villages for a week or two. And what was truly amazing was that was the best part, or one of the best parts of the trip, and that we got to, the people would look at us and, oh, you poor dears, well, come home with us. Because they wanted somebody different from the same 20 to 200 people they knew for their whole life. Oh, you're kind of different, and you're not seemingly as crazy as my father, so I feel safe, so come on. And anyway, we had an amazing time. Broome was amazing. I mean, it was that's where the cultured pearl was invented. And this guy, took most of his life doing it, and he had Broome is a city. I mean, pretty much city. It's a town of maybe 1,000, and it's right on the ocean, and it's beautiful beaches, and they have a beautiful harbor which they use to cultivate the pearls. And there are Aborigines, Asian, and white folk, mostly Irish there, and they've all interbred for the last 100 or so years. So they're like 6th generation, and these people are gorgeous. All the best of those 3 races came out in these people, and they were like, especially the women, they were really tall, and they hardly wore any clothes at all. Nobody. It was really hot up there. North is hot, south is cold. Really hot up there. We were there in the summertime, and everyone works either in fishing or, and when they fish, they don't have big trawlers. They have these little canoes, and these guys go out with masts, and they jump in the water with a little spear, and they spear the fish, or get the crab or the lobster. And so we had some pretty great fish, and lobster. And these people were gorgeously beautiful, and so innocently sweet and nice. And the fact that we were, patient and nice and interested in them, and weren't rushed. Oh, I can't stand being here. I have to be in such and such. They kept commenting on that we couldn't be white people. I don't think I am. Anyway, so we went from there to Alice Springs, and Alice Springs is where. Here's another little thing. So World War II was a war between these factions, extraterrestrial factions, of the blue-eyed, blonde-haired, tall white folk that the Nazis were backed by, and we Americans, guess who we were backed by? Little gray guys. Guess who the English were backed by? The reptiles, because their queen is a reptile. That family, the reptiles, have been in power for hundreds of years, since Henry VIII, and probably before. Again, these are all just what I would call urban legends. But look them up. And go look up David Icke and Joseph P. Farrell. He's big on the Nazis. And what happened to us, America, is that the Nazis lost the war. No, well, not really. The Nazis, Germany was bombed into the Stone Age, thanks to General LeMay, who then went on to Japan and incinerated them. And the Nazis won the war. The Dulles brothers made a deal and let 70,000 Nazis out. And Adolf and his henchmen were basically, from the beginning, poster boy that were going to be thrown under the bus. The real powers, because they were these blue-eyed, blonded, tall white folk, the Aryans, whose god is Ares, the god of war, they won. They went off to, they had already been, or their two major places, the blondes, are the moon and the South Pole. And the moon is, and this is why you need to read Joseph Campbell, because his books are amazing. And good old George Lucas sat at the foot of our storyteller, and basically the whole arc of Star Wars came out of Joseph Campbell's mouth. And the moon is an artificial device. Back in the day when there were wars going on, and the wars are still going on in our solar system, all the things you see flying around are, ours. But they represent those three forces. Those three forces gave different constituencies in America that technology, pretty much from the 1870s on, but mostly from the 1930s on, and mostly doubled down from 1947. And that's what Roswell was. You know, they kind of basically, more than once, plowed one of their ships in front of our face so we could go pick up the broken toys and reverse engineer them. Again, you must know that this is an urban legend. I love when people go on about, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, so what? You know, conspiracy, when more than two come together to do something that they didn't tell anybody else, well, that goes on a lot. Pretty much in every boardroom, there are more than two people getting together talking about what they're going to do without telling anybody else. And theory means an idea that you're in the process of proving. So, if someone has got a conspiracy theory, they're not nuts. They're just looking at a group of people who hid themselves from the general public, and the theory part is they're trying to prove what they were doing. So that's all that is. And the urban legend, you know, I like the urban legend, you know, and it gives you that kind of hospitality slash kind of fun house thing of what kind of is going on. And it's going on at the behest of you, YouTube viewers, and at the expense of you. I mean, they talk about, you know, our deficit is like, you know, $20 trillion. Forget it. Our deficit is like $200 trillion, or whatever the next number after trillion is, gazillion. Meaning, we have no money. Our dollar bill is worthless. You know, it's only kept alive by the scam. You know, that it is the petrodollar, that it is the international monetary foundation. But all that has to, you know, if the yen, the Japanese yen becomes it, or the Chinese yuan, or, you know, because that's what happened to the pound. Anyway, so again, these lights are bothering me, and I'm getting tired. But that should be more than enough for John to edit up. So, look for, I am trying to put up a website called, what's it called? xrated.blogspot.com. And I don't know how, you know, back in the day, because I've been around the birth of the digital world a lot, but I never, it would just kind of bored me. I didn't really, you know, I have lots of friends who became big millionaires, you know, off of this, you know, and half the things, I gave them the idea, but I was like, this is boring. Thanks for the drink. And then they went on and spent their whole life doing that, and, you know, rest is history. But I'm realizing I have to bite the bullet and figure out how to run this stuff myself. So that's something that I haven't been able, you know, somebody put up for me. Now my Gmail account is a lot easier. That I got a hold of and could, you know, and I have to thank you for hundreds of you Gmailing me and telling me how they feel. And what I really like about what all of you YouTubers have said to me anyway, my Gmail account, which is thedudeawake42, you know, at gmail.com. I think that's it. I haven't said it in so long, maybe it's not, but if you look at all the other ones, it's pretty much thedudeawake42 at gmail.com. I'm pretty sure. Go look at the other ones. It's up on, John has posted it up on the other ones. But anyway, everything you've said to me, and like I said, hundreds of you folks have replied, way more than have replied to John's YouTube channel. So a lot of you are watching it. Anyway, You all said very nice things, even though those people who didn't believe or
Who
agree.
said it? Have you been talking to somebody on the video?
I talked to all the
Just the
YouTube
audience.
people. Yeah, the audience.
Oh, okay, amazing.
Yep. And I was
on
just.
the phone with Leila.
Hey, Leila, you're back again.
Oh yeah.
And,
You want to finish the video?
I was finishing it up just as we were smoking. Anyway, what I wanted to say that all those people who responded to me. Oh, hey, Leila, can you hear me, Leila?
I can hear you.
My new Gmail account is the Dude Awake. Get a pen. Get a pen.
No, I can give it to you. It's in his videos. You don't have to write it down. Wait.
No, you can write it down. The Dude Awake 42 at Gmail.
He's only 42 years
The
old.
Dude Awake 42.
His penis is 42 inches long.
The Dude
That's
Awake.
what it's all about.
No, it's not, John.
When it
Intimacy
corrects
is about connection.
No,
It's
it's
not
awful.
the size of one's organ.
It's about pushing those things that you want to act like everyone's the best in the world in nature. Is that what?
No.
That's not what it's all about. I know
no,
that's for sure.
No. It's
It's
about
being kind.
you got it, John.
Kindness
You
to
got
others.
it. Yep. Connection.
Not trying to act like you have a long penis, you're in the best shape, you have the most money, you're the coolest, most famous rock star.
That's right.
This and that you think is cool. Right?
That's
it's
right.
not about all that.
It's not about all that.
Okay.
See, I'm homeless. I don't have a nickel. I can't. I can hum. I can whistle. I can't whistle anymore. I lost my teeth. So I'm none of those things. But I am me. I am Al. Al, the Dude Awake. Just the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Anyway, what I was saying before John and Leila joined me was that I want to thank all of you who have sent me an email, because a lot of you really, you've all appreciated it. And a lot of you go, wow, this is amazing. But there are a lot of you who go, have a belief in something else and have been unbelievably nice and sweet about how you express your feelings, which is right on. That's the way it should be. I don't believe in anything. So if you want to tell me your beliefs and you really believe in them, that's great. I'm all for it. And then, as you have noticed, I have returned in said course. I've pretty much tried to email all of you back. And I, again, appreciate all of you interest and appreciation. And
what's Leila doing? Oh.
I don't know.
What?
He wanted to know what you were doing, Leila.
And you appreciate it, and they're good.
Right.
And the video
is over. Say goodnight, John.
is over an hour long.
Say goodnight, John.
Okay, good night. You want to say good night to him?
Good night.
Okay. Turn it off, John. Not Leila, but
Now it's Jimmy time.
Jimmy.
Yay,
Jimmy, come here. Jimmy, give me a hand. Jimmy, no, Jimmy, give me a hand, Jimmy. Jimmy, give me a hand. No, give me up. Give me 1, 2, 3. Pull, Jimmy. Pull.
Jimmy.
Sit down, Jimmy. We're switching places. Okay. Hey, kids, it's Jimmy time. Sit down. There's Jimmy. Jimmy and Leila. It's the Jimmy and Leila show.
Jimmy. No. Okay, bye. Okay, click here for the Al video. Al videos, his Dreamtime with Al, his whole series. Click here to subscribe. If there's any other videos, it'll be over here. Bye.